Hey friends, welcome to the channel. I'm Tirso and I'm a creative director based in New York City. As you can see, I am not in my apartment. I am on a weekend trip in Florida. I came down here to play tennis. Could I have done this in New York? Yes, but did I need to get away? Also yes. Sometimes for me, vacation is about reflection. In my last video, I covered resume design, so I thought, why not reflect on some of my favorite jobs in my career? There will be lots of story time for this one, both good and bad, but as I reflect on everything, I really appreciate every opportunity that's come my way because it's what's gotten me to where I am today. First of all, how I got this job was extremely unconventional. I don't mean to be cavalier about finding a job, but I didn't exactly apply. Story time. One day, the design director reached out for me to come in. I imagine she got my contact from a previous boss, but when I got there was no contract. They just said, keep coming in. So that's all I did. I just kept coming in and nobody ever told me to go home. They offered me full-time at one point, but I wasn't really interested. My mantra back then was never hired and never fired. When people ask me to do things, I love telling them, I don't work here. It's funny to me. Freelance is the absolute best lifestyle if you can find consistent work. I was freelance there for 3 years. When Meredith acquired Time Inc., we were all forced to go full-time. So about the job, culture matters a lot, and that was probably one of my favorite things about the Foundry. We were somewhat of a clique in the art department. In the beginning, there were about 4 to 6 of us that would always hang out, and we even traveled together. So when 4 to 6 members of the art department take vacation, you are very limited, effectively closed, but still functional. We went to Norway, England, Puerto Rico. 2 of my friends even flew to Chicago for the day to get deep dish pizza with me. Exhausting, but highly recommend. Because we were so close, work was fun. The environment was pretty stress-free, which resulted in producing better work. So now to the work. The biggest benefit of the job was the breadth of projects that we worked on. I was never going to leave this job until I had a portfolio in every vertical, which is pharma, finance, auto, beauty, fashion, I already had, travel, food, and retail. Story time. Hands down, my favorite project was working on a campaign for the Porsche Panamera. It's pronounced Porsche. The client would not let us forget it. We shot the car north of Seattle in Skagit County. We drove about 500 to 600 miles in 2 days. To put in perspective, you often rely on natural light to shoot a car, especially on location. It does depend on location, but you'll often find that the best light is during sunset or sundown, which means we were getting home around 11:30. Super exhausting, but the photos from the shoot were totally worth it. I was at the Foundry for about 8 years. I love that I have the portfolio, but the team is truly what kept me there for so long. Now this was a great job. I loved the team at Wired, super chill, did brilliant work. I would say that this was a dumb luck transition for me. It was marketing and advertising for magazines, and very few designers are able to make this shift. My friend Parker was working there at the time, so obviously he recommended me. Apparently it was down to me and another candidate, but the creative director ended up hiring me because I wrote a thank you note. A handwritten thank you note, to be clear. I have fairly neat handwriting, and I think when an employer sees it, it aligns your application with discipline, organization, all great things. Note to self, actually note to you, write a thank you note. I was hired specifically to work on the Wired store, which is a pop-up shop of the holiday gift guide. So we found an empty space and built a retail shop. Story time. Drinking and driving. We held activations in the event space across 3 weeks. The event was also sponsored by the McAllens, so it was a recipe for disaster. We ended up having to get breathalyzers. If you blew under, you could test drive the car, but if you blew over, you can sit on the passenger seat and someone else would drive you. The event was also sponsored by the McAllens, so it was pretty much a recipe for a disaster. We ended up getting breathalyzers so you could test people. If you blew under, you could drive the car. If you blew over, you could ride in the passenger seat and someone else would drive you. This was not the best experience, but sometimes you just gotta work with what you got. Story time. Partial cool story, I was a Walking Dead fan at the time, and at the launch party, I ended up running into Norman Reedus, aka Daryl. Obviously wanted a photo with him, but I am the biggest introvert. He ended up asking me if I wanted to take a photo, which was very kind. In short, Norman Reedus is one of the good celebrities and should be saved at all costs. From this job, I was introduced to event design and marketing. Again, I didn't apply here. Condé Nast HR called me, realizing now that since 2011, I haven't applied to any of my jobs. But I can help it that I'm popular. Totally joking, sort of. Teen Vogue was both a dream and a nightmare. The dream was that I was able to work with some of them firsthand, like Eva Chen, Jane Keltner, Amy Astley, and Anna Wintour. Story time. True fact about me, every time I get nervous, I have to say something silly to break the tension. I rode the elevator with Anna once, and apparently you're not supposed to, but I didn't know. The only thing that came out of my mouth was, "I like your hair today." God, that was embarrassing. She has the same hair every day. We have to move past that. She ended up liking me because she found out that I played tennis. Story time. Favorite Anna memory, when she comes down, the people working in the fashion closet are supposed to clear the hallway for her. We could see the hallway from a glass conference room in the art department. One day, a rolling rack was left in the middle of the hallway, and we all thought, oh, this is the end. We see her walking up to the rolling rack, and instead of pushing it off to the side, she ends up parting the clothes and stepping through the rolling rack. When she gets through, she shook her head and was like, "It seems a bit cluttered in here." At least she has a sense of humor. Dream number 2 was the exposure to the list of photographers that was specific to Vogue and Teen Vogue, which includes Boo George, Gianpaolo Segura, Peggy Sirota, Sebastian Kim, Raymond Meyer, Bruce Weber, and the late Patrick DeMarchelier. So what was the nightmare here? Let's start with the predominantly female staff. For lack of better words, but the truest description, it was possibly the most castrating experience I've ever had. It was very much Tirso versus the estrogen section. Can I say that in 2022? I said it. Fight me. Which brings me to nightmare number 2, which was that the design was pink, like all pink. I think it took us a year to finally switch the pink to red. Even more so, when I showed my layouts to my boss, she would say, "Oh, that's cute." My layouts can be cool, they could be dynamic, they could be not working, but what they can't be is cute. Cute doesn't really give me enough feedback to grow as a designer. Now to the content. I was a 24-year-old male that did not care about Justin Bieber or Selena Gomez. I was fine with One Direction, but not a die-hard fan. And beauty was totally a thing with Eva Chen and Elaine Welteroth as big names in the industry. I was fine with skincare, but the makeup, not interested. Why are there so many different types of foundation? There is powdered foundation, there is liquid in a tube, and then there's liquid in a pump. Like, do we need both? With the amount of foundation I had to deal with, I was convinced that I would see foundation on my firstborn child. Nightmare number 3. The job was extremely demanding, and I also had a very tough boss. The hours were beyond. I remember once working till like 3 in the morning. I was miserable. Absolutely miserable. Not all was bad from the demand of the job. I became an extremely fast designer, and I stopped being intimidated by a blank white page. I can say this very comfortably that the best decision in my career was taking the job at Teen Vogue. The second best decision in my career was to leave. Contrary to Teen Vogue, I was very much interested in the content here. I did mostly events, but I really enjoyed working in luxury travel. I also had an excellent boss. She was super personable, and the best part was that we 100% aligned on design aesthetic. Story time. I was doing an event for the social media awards. When I was scrolling through Instagram, of all the things, I ended up seeing a photo of the award that I designed, and a travel and leisure magazine. So I messaged him and I said, I think we're at the same after party. We were messaging back and forth, trying to find each other. I think it took like an hour and a half to finally meet up. I thought it was very meta to meet a follower at these social media awards. Story time. I also worked on the World's Best Awards. In the entrance, there's this 32-foot wall. When I was setting up in the morning and tried to put up the logo lockup, I realized that I sent the wrong file to the printer and it printed at 16 feet. So I was missing half of the wall. In the moment, I just had to figure out what can I do with the wall. I thought to center the logo and then maybe put 2 or 3 wait staff on the sides and they could hand out champagne and then maybe nobody would notice. Someone else got in touch with the printer and they were able to reprint. It would just come later in the day, so crisis averted. Story time. Another project I was on was for Maui Gym. We had a hotel takeover at the Ritz-Carlton in the Cayman Islands. I created a step and repeat for the event. For those of you that don't know what a step and repeat is, it is the logo wall where people take photos in front of. When I've done step and repeats in the past, it would just be a flat wall, but because it was so windy down there, the wind ended up blowing the step and repeat over. Apparently, you're supposed to print it on fabric with holes in it so that the wind goes through it, but how was I supposed to know? We ended up just printing a bunch of beach balls and then filled the pool with them. This job was not about how I executed everything perfectly. Instead, it's about how I fixed all the problems that were caused by me. It is all about perspective, so to keep it positive, I think on my resume, I really emphasize the problem solving. I just never addressed that I was also problem causing. Story time. Just kidding. If you made it this far in the video, thanks so much for hanging out. Your career will be a bunch of ups and downs, but it's about learning and making sure you have fun along the way. Drop a comment below or check out some of my other videos, and I'll see you back in New York.